Yes, yes, people. Good evening and welcome to Grounded Football on First 11, Episode 3. And tonight I'm joined by usual Rak Singh. Hi, Rak. How are you? How are you? How's your week been?
Yeah, good Steve. Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Just started the week off today and been busy as ever. But nice to unwind, have a chat with you guys, and talk Liverpool.
Cool, mate. Always good to have you on. My old mucker Ian Young up there in the top right. We've spent more times on podcasts together than we care to remember. But he's a good lad and always good to have him on the show. How are you, Ian?
Good, not bad, mate. Spend a lot of time working, being a dad, all the same stuff that I do every single week, and obviously following Liverpool very, very closely.
Exactly right, mate. And finally, not least, Mike, how are you, fella? Long time no see. Glad to see you've got over COVID, mate. That was a bit of a worrying story you told us, but good to have you on, pal. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me on, mate. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm happy to be on today. I think I've got a few things I want to get off my chest, and then I'll hit the reset button and wait to the season
Uh,
to.
so basically, what you're going to do is leave the carnage behind and let me, Ian, and Rack deal with it when you leave. Yeah, is that what you're saying? It is, isn't it? Right. Well, I'm going to switch the menu around a little bit because I know your time's limited, and I'm going to come to you first because there's some stories doing the rounds today about where we are in terms of our transfer window, and this is the latest one to hit social media. Now, take everything with a pinch of salt, but you are an emotive guy. That's what I love about you, mate. So I'll come to you first, Mike. Thoughts on the latest rumours that now we balance the books, no more signings.
Yeah. Why? I'll ask you a question. Why is it that Liverpool are the only club that have problems? I don't understand that. Like, why is it only us that has to balance the books? Only one of the things I seen today was we'd have too many non-homegrown players. Um, it always seems to be, to me anyway, that Liverpool have all the problems in the world. I don't understand this club. I don't understand what they're doing. So when you're talking about balancing the books, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know if it's the owners. I don't know if it's Klopp who is got this attitude that he's got the perfect squad because that's what I seem to get the vibe off when I'm on Twitter. Is like you can't question Klopp, you can't question his decisions, you can't question the players, you can't do anything. So it is a bit frustrating reading or hearing things like that they've got to balance the books. I don't understand because everybody else around us seems to be making moves, and if you look at last season, for instance, we went into last season champions of the Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we had, a very good squad, albeit we had three injuries to three major centre backs, three starting centre backs, but we didn't really improve the squad in any way, and that showed. Apart from Jota, who obviously did do his part, but we didn't really improve the squad depth, and that showed. Obviously, we achieved a miracle in finishing third. I have no idea how we done that, but always believe in Liverpool. But yeah, it is frustrating, mate. It is frustrating. That's the overall feeling when you read things like this because it's just like we're not the only club that's affected by COVID. We're not the only club that struggles with these things. So we need to get our act together. Basically, that's my point of view.
I think 2 points to that. First one is last summer. Since the last summer came, Ian and I spoke with a Liverpool journalist on a pod. We did an hour with a guy called David Lynch, and he told us that Jurgen Klopp pulled the plug on the signing of a centre back last summer because he felt, if necessary, Fabinho could slot in there and do a job for a period of time. He didn't have a crystal ball. He never could have imagined the difficulties we would go through, and that backfired hugely. That's a massive calculated risk, and it kind of leaves him with a bit of egg on his face. But he would have done it for whatever reasons he felt he needed to. The second point you make, and it's a good point, is that why are we so different? Well, the reason why we're so different is currently from the purchase price to the club's current value, FSG are looking at somewhere in the region of 800% profit. So every time they dip into the transfer kitty for £50 million player, the only place that comes off is the bottom line. So home games cost Liverpool anywhere between £4 and £5 million a home game without the fans. So that's a significant loss in terms of revenue. They don't put their own money into it. one thing I do need to address, and it's good that you made that point, is people who watch this need to understand the Red Bright investment was not for Liverpool Football Club. It was to buy into the FSG portfolio, because they are going to buy other sports franchises in whatever sports they see fit. I would imagine they'll buy a low-key German team and try and develop them and turn them all similar. So that's not about putting money in Liverpool's coffers to, quote, cover COVID. That's nonsense. You can't just go and get £500 million out of someone's bank account and then say, Liverpool, go and spend that. Life doesn't work like that. So what we've got at the moment is a really, really financially strict parent company that are using the club to maximize its value, and at some point they'll sell it. And until then, they're not going to go and do what Man United are doing. When Man United sign Varane, which looks like it's going to happen, they'll be close to £800 million in debt. That's not the mantra of FSG. So if the Glazers are happy to wear the debt, and I'm not knocking it, and I know there'll be Man United fans watching, so please don't give me the hate, but those are your accounts. What Liverpool are trying to do is run it like a trader's table, Mike, where whatever they spend is whatever they sell. So if they spend 100 million, they expect to sell 100 million, and we don't like it. And unfortunately, the harsh reality is, as time moves on and the seasons move on, is that unless you get someone who's prepared to throw money at it like a big, expensive, big boy's toy, this is the world we live in. So let's fast forward 12 months. Imagine if we're all sat around in the same conversation 12 months down the line and Klopp goes and wins the league with this squad, because trust me, he's quite capable of doing that. He will take greater satisfaction out of doing that, and we will take greater satisfaction out of seeing him doing that than if he spent £500 million on 4 players. I don't think he would thank you for giving him £1 billion to spend. I really don't think he'd spend it anyway.
I agree. This is what I disagree with. I think if Klopp, in my opinion, just going back quickly to your point that he pulled the plug on a centre-back last season, in hindsight, that wasn't the right move, was it?
No.
He should have got a centre-back, right? So this is what I mean by saying you're allowed to criticise the manager, even if he is the best manager that we've ever had, arguably, in terms of what he's delivered, well, in the last 30 years anyway. I can only speak about Liverpool in the last 20 years because that's my most recent memory. I didn't support Liverpool. I'm 30 this year, so I wasn't supporting Liverpool in the 80s. I don't know anything about that, right? So I'm not going to pretend to speak to that. But you should be allowed to criticise the manager, one, if he's making decisions like saying, I don't want to improve the squad because I feel that it will ruin some sort of balance that he's already got at the moment. I don't think that's right. But anyway, here we are. We still have Champions League football, which we have to be grateful for, because there was a point in time where me, I can't say we, I did not believe it was possible to actually achieve that kind of thing. And then secondly, I agree with you. If you gave Klopp 100 million or 100 billion, he would not spend it. He doesn't want it, and that's what annoys me, because I want. See, let me be honest with you. I want top class signings at the club. I want it. I would be lying if I said I don't look at Mbappe thinking he would be a tasty player to play with Mo Salah or Sadio Mane. I'm not sitting here thinking, I don't know, whoever it is that the scouts deem appropriate for the football club, we should be investing in the future of the club, not just sitting stalemate till, Mo Salah turns 32, Sadio Mane is 32, and then all of a sudden we're sitting thinking, who are we going to invest in? What's going on? Who can we sell? When are we going to sell Origi? That kind of talk it's so irritating for a casual fan. I do appreciate that you're more level-headed, Steve, so I will give you that in terms of looking at the bigger picture. But this is where football is at the moment. I will stop talking. I will leave you guys to go on, and I will butt in where I feel like it's necessary. But that's
no worries. Feel free, mate. That's what it's about. You're a passionate guy, and I've talked to these two guys, particularly Ian, about I've talked to Ian about the nuts and bolts that make the place. That's how much level of detail we've been to. But in terms of you, it's a long time since I spoke to you, and that's why I wanted you to come on tonight, because you're an emotive guy, and I like that, and the way you put your questions across is really good. in terms of the comment that's on screen, do you not think Klopp would be fine spending a lot of money if it meant he could keep up with the big spenders? After the current players leave, you may have to spend a lot to compete. So that's two questions there. And the first one is, he and his current team, I think they've something to prove because of last season. So they'll be back and they'll be bigger and stronger. Rack and I have spoken about this before. The base salary for Liverpool Football Club is around 190 million.
Steve,
Go on.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Do you not think the other clubs have something to prove as well? Does Klopp think about that?
Do you think that they didn't see all the fans, because they do read social media, and Gini Wijnaldum is something we'll talk about later. They do see people calling them out as the worst defensive champions ever. They will know by their own standards that last season was poor, and some of it was within their control and some of it wasn't. We get our intensity from double training sessions. We get our intensity similar to what you do when you go to the gym by absolutely beasting yourself. That's what we did, and that intensity. There were times last season we didn't even train because it was Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, so they didn't train them because they were a bit fragile. To take that intensity, as you would well know, being a guy who's training yourself, to take that intensity out when you're used to it is a really hard adaptation. So, yeah, it's been difficult. Back to the second point of that question, when Klopp leaves or when the current players get old, FSG will probably make a decision at that point whether to sell the club. So it'll become somebody else's problem. That's what I genuinely believe. They're not in this for the long haul because you can buy a 2-bedroom house and you can fit a hot tub and you can put a 50-inch telly on the wall and you can do this, that, and the other. But at some point, it reaches its maximum value. And I think Liverpool Football Club can't grow anymore in terms of its value. So it's a matter of timing for the sale. Not to leave the other two guys. Go on, Mike.
Massive part of that. So I'm so sorry, but it's like a massive part of what you just said is that is such an unfair thing for the fans who love the club. And they are treating it like a business. And I know it's a business. I know it's a business, but think about how unfair that is for somebody like me who plans on supporting Liverpool for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it is unfair. It is unfair. Unfortunately, when I started watching football, and I'll give my age away if I tell you, so you're not getting that. But if I was to tell you when I started watching football, it was a sport. People signed for Liverpool because they wanted to sign for Liverpool. They didn't sign for Chelsea because they got offered more money, and it was the bright lights of London. Football wasn't about that. Unfortunately, as we know, in 1992, when the Premier League was inducted and then Sky got involved, the face of football changed completely. There are a number of clubs currently in the Premier League being run by mega rich Americans, and they're using them for their own means. And unfortunately, it's the fans that suffer. Don't think for one second that this regeneration of Anfield was done to support the fans. It was done to make Liverpool a more saleable commodity at some point in the future. And that's quite cynical, but that's how it is. And at the end of the summer transfer window, we end up with a sort of a balance where we've sold as much as we bought, and we do fall behind, then the fans will turn on FSG. Even the most ardent of people who would tell you they're not FSG out will start to question what they are doing and why they are doing it. Rack, your thoughts on that, mate?
I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, you're right. One of the ways that they grow the value of their asset is by making it more profitable, so they can turn over more money, have, improve revenue streams and all that kind of stuff. But usually that goes hand in hand with success. And as much as some people think that they're not really in it for success, I think that is one of the ways that they kind of maximize their return if and when they will sell Liverpool. They will sell Liverpool one day, and what I worry about is, because I'm not really under any illusions. I don't necessarily think they love Liverpool, but I do think they want to win. But one of the ways they sell Liverpool is not by selling, to like some an individual who's like a multi-billionaire, because there aren't that many of them around. What they're probably going to do is try maybe float it on the New York Stock Exchange or something like that, because that's really how they maximize their return. And by selling 10% to JP Morgan and 15% to Bain Capital and all that kind of stuff, they maximize their return. And unfortunately, I think at some point in the future, all these people are going to want dividends and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, we're going to be in a bit of trouble, or there are going to be issues. But look, I mean, I know they're Americans, but they've held on to the Boston Red Sox for a long time. I don't necessarily think, as far as I know, that they're massive baseball lovers, but they have done well with Red Sox since they won their first World Series after a gap of like 100 and something years. No other team has won as many World Series in the US as Boston. So they do like winning. It's not, but I just think they have a particular way they run the club, and I I also want the club to be self-sustaining. Like I don't want a sugar daddy owner, someone who's of questionable moral and ethical standing. And if you can find me better owners, I'm always open to listening. But I don't necessarily think there are many better owners. How many better owners are there in the Premier League? Like, I mean, I'm not being funny, but I don't really want Abu Dhabi owning Liverpool, for example.
I think that's coming at some point, mate. Unfortunately, I think that's the harsh reality of football. I think in our lifetime we'll pretty much see the death of football due to commercialism. If I'm being honest with you, that'd be a travesty, wouldn't it? Because it's escapism for the people, and they take that away from them. What have they got? Ian, your thoughts on what we've spoken about? FSG's rumor that they've balanced the books now with the income. Bearing in mind they're not going to receive any money for Harry Wilson until 2022. In order for Fulham to not breach financial fair play regulations, they've agreed to hold that money back in abeyance. So your thoughts on what we've been speaking about? Ian?
He's frozen, I think.
He's doing a good job.
Steve, can I come back on that? Just a quick thing.
Of course you can.
So whatever agreement we have with Fulham is not really that important, because we could very easily, in similar way to what we did with the Coutinho deal, and what's pretty common in business is we can factor any fee or any deal that we've made with Fulham. So that would basically mean going to a financial institution saying, "Hey, look, these guys owe us 12 million. Rather than pay this next year, if you give us all that money up front, you can take 2%, 3%, 4%, whatever the case may be, whatever the fee is going to be." And then
they will do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we did with the Coutinho deal. So whatever we've agreed with Fulham is not, in a practical sense at least, is not really super important.
No, I get that. It's a nice gesture, but unfortunately, you see, I take the time to go and read about how football business works, and clearly you do as well. It's not just superficial about a big square of grass and what the players do. It's about understanding what goes on behind the scenes. So it is a bit more. There's a bit more to it than that. It is a concern. It is a worry. At the end of the day, if we buy one player and sell five, that's not strengthening the squad, really. Is it? Okay, it was an area that's highlighted by last season's issues, but we've got 7 centre-backs on the books at the moment, so we could go from one extreme to the next. You could end up seeing a centre-back playing as a defensive midfielder, for instance. Joe Matip could quite easily play at the base of your midfield because of the way he uses a football. So we could actually see this come around full circle.
I think he started his career playing in midfield, actually, Matip. So I mean, I don't know how much he's done, practically in the first team, but I think he has got a background in playing in midfield.
I agree. Ian, welcome back. You kind of went max headroom and stuck fast on us there. Just what your thoughts on this rumour that's going on? How do you feel about that being the notion that might be it?
If it's true, it's not what any of us want to see as Liverpool supporters, but that's the important thing. Is this true? What we've got to remember is Liverpool, we are probably one of the most clickable teams when it comes to news. If you put a bit of news out, Liverpool fans are very reactionary, and Liverpool fans will absolutely click anything. We'll also react to anything, and we'll also get anything trending. So if we have a quiet day, all you need to do is post a little bit of news that'll get Liverpool fans up, and Twitter goes insane. So I'm not very, very trusted when it comes to the journalists anymore, because they've all got their own little companies, and they all want to interact, and they all want their profile clicking, and they all want their websites clicking. So all we're doing right now is talking about rumours and what might be. So I reckon let's get through to the 31st of August. Let's see what happens, and then if that is what happens, what the rumours is, then let's sit down and discuss it and have a post-mortem about the transfer window then. But I don't know to say I'm a bit more positive, but let's just sit back and see what happens first, and let's try to not overreact.
That's fine, mate. I appreciate that. Next comment. Next thing I want to speak about is a week in the window, ins and outs. So outs then, lol, because there's never no ins for a week, has there? So looking at looking at the transfers we made, we've sold Harry Wilson for 12 million. We're potentially selling Shaqiri for 12 million. That sounds a bit mad to me because they're not the same players. One's infinitely better than the other one, and one's got a pedigree of winning trophies and being in successful sides and contributing at the Euros. Mike, thoughts on whether that's a masterstroke getting 12 million for Harry Wilson, or it's a little bit of a missed opportunity only getting 12 for Shaqiri? Which of them do you think it is?
I'll leave the stronger language out of this one. Getting 12 for Harry Wilson, I think, is a fair deal. Getting 12 for a player like Shaqiri, I think, is an absolute insult. It's an absolute insult to the player. It's an absolute insult to the club. And it, again, Steve, for me, I know people watching this, or you lot might think, again, I'm being reactionary or too emotional, but it just shows how desperate the club are. It shows how desperate we are to sell players, to generate funds, to go to wherever it is that it's going to, because evidently, and do you know another one? I know we're not speaking about this, but do you know another thing that Liverpool love to do is to say that they're renewing contracts? Like they're the only club that renews contracts. It's like, why is it that always Liverpool have these problems? Anyway, to answer the question, I think it's an insult for Shaqiri. I agree with you. The pedigree of the player, in terms of what he's won, in terms of the impacts. I know people might not think he's had an impact at Liverpool, but in my eyes, Shaqiri's had an impact at Liverpool. I think he's been unfortunate. I don't think the manager has particularly favoured Shaqiri. I don't think he's given them the patience, because if he did, I think we could have seen a different Shaqiri. And I don't think the fans appreciate that. I think the fans are just kind of thinking he's not good enough, because if he's good enough, Klopp would have played him. Again, nobody wants to question Klopp, even though, yes, I agree, he's won everything that we possibly could have wished for. But it doesn't mean that every single decision he's made has been right. So I think, to answer the question, it's a bit of an insult. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Ian, what are your thoughts on the same thing? £12 million for both players. Before you answer that, Shaqiri's contractual situation was very different to Harry Wilson's, for instance. And also his wages. Do you think that has an impact on any future deal, given that we are in a COVID transfer window, as much as some people don't want to hear that? Do you think his wages had an impact on the fee we got for him?
I think it's plain and simple, Steve, that when we signed him for 13 million from Stoke, he was playing week in and week out. He's come to Liverpool and he's done good things. Don't get me wrong, he has. But he's not making an impact week in, week out, whether that be down to injuries or whether Klopp's not selecting him. So what you've got to ask yourself is, if Michael Edwards was looking at a similar player, because we know the stuff Michael Edwards does, would Michael Edwards pay more than 12 million quid for Shaqiri with the amount of time he spends on the pitch?
Question. I reckon Michael Edwards would sell every single player on our bench for 12 million if he could.
Drop the mic. That was a drop the mic moment. I want to.
But to be fair, though, are they worth any more than that? Are they worth any more than that?
Exactly.
Look, I don't necessarily think Shaq's worth much more, to be honest. Like, maybe in a good market, you could say probably, because I think he's 30 as well, right? So anyone buying him is not really going to have much of a sell on. Whereas that's not the same with Wilson. He's probably on decent wages. There's like English teams have been affected by COVID, right? But foreign teams have been affected much, much more, because they haven't got the same level of TV revenue. In Italy right now, they still don't know. I know, because I used to live in Italy. They still don't know what capacity the fans are going to be able to return at when the season starts. So any league, I mean, France is something similar in the sense that their TV deal has basically bottomed out. It's a complete mess over there. So the number of potential buyers for a player like Shaq, even at 12 million, is going to be relatively limited. For sure, Michael Edwards would have shopped him around different. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that. Someone's that fireworks outside my window.
Sounds like a horse is going past your front window, that mate.
Sorry about that. But Michael Edwards would have shopped him around and tried to get a fair idea of what people are willing to pay. And if 12 million is the best what they can get, then it is what it is. Like, I think it does make sense for us to get sales done as quickly as possible, because that's going to give us a better idea of what kind of final budget we might have to work with. So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily wildly undervaluing him.
I must say, Rack, that's one hell of a fan club you've got when you speak. They set off fireworks.
Sorry.
Yeah. Also, right. Okay. So we'll come away from the sort of Shaqiri things. I think we've done that. Divock Origi, the man that doesn't divide our fan base at all. I think every one of us to a man would like to see Divock Origi go and play his trade somewhere else. That's me being absolutely as polite as I can be this evening. Ian, Divock Origi, how much would you take for Divock Origi to get him off the wage bill, mate? Oh, he's gone into freeze again. All right, Michael, I'll come to you on that one, mate, while Ian sorts out his connection. Divock Origi, fella, what's the thoughts on him?
12 million, mate. Just give us 12 million. We'll take 12 million at this stage.
I knew you were going to do that.
Nah, and in all seriousness, I don't understand how Divock Origi is still at the club. After we won the Champions League, that was the perfect marketing opportunity to get him off the books. If Mike Edwards was so great and a mastermind, how come he couldn't do it? I don't understand that. Anyway, that's not the point. I know there's like contracts and players need to choose the right club, and there's all kinds of things that go into doing a transfer, right? Fine. But at this stage, I think we're looking at subpar under 10 million at this stage for Divock Origi. I wouldn't expect anything massive to come off selling him. Because is it like a thing where his wages are impacting us not being able to buy another replacement for him? What's going on there? I don't fully understand.
I would suspect if he leaves, he's going to ask for some of his contracts to be honoured because he hasn't asked to leave. This is quite common. This is a conversation I had with Ian earlier today. This idea that the net spend thing is a bit of a misnomer for me, because it doesn't talk about agents' fees and it doesn't talk about what you pay to players to get to say to Divock Origi, actually, Divock, thanks for what you've done, my friend, but your future's somewhere else. He goes to his agent and says, I'm quite happy to stay at Liverpool. So his agent comes back and says he's got 18 months of his deal left. Then I want 12 months of that paying up, and that is always an issue, and it's more of an issue now than it ever has been before.
Yeah, I don't know. I would take anything, and 10 million is fine. 10 million, 12 is the best I would hope for.
I think if we get 12 million for him, mate, we should give Michael Edwards the key to the city, mate, because fundamentally, mate, I'd take 12 quid for Divock Origi right now, never mind 12 million, mate. He just is burning a hole in the payroll team's pockets at the moment, mate, because he just doesn't look interested. So every one of us that supports Liverpool would die on that hill to play for that club, understandably so. He doesn't love the club the way that we do, but we're paying his wages. And he's a bit of a cult hero because he was there to put the ball in off the bar against Everton. He scores a couple of goals in the Champions League semi-final, albeit one was from about 3.5 inches, but he's still there to score the goal. And then obviously he scores which was a great finish in the Champions League final. Let's be honest, that is a really good finish. But if you're being subjective about it and you look at the rest of his performance in the Champions League final, we played with 10 men because he was appalling apart from his goal, and that's very much the way he is at the moment. So I think I would be inclined to try and work him into a swap deal for something, a bag of training balls, anything, mate. Just got to go, mate. You know what I mean? His time is done. He needs to move on. So I'm going to come to you, Rack. Is there anyone else right now? Obviously, someone's mentioned Nat Phillips. Personally, I think Nat Phillips should be given the choice because of what he did last season. Whether he stays and plays as a third or fourth choice centre back, or he has the choice to go and play somewhere else and get game time. Ian, thoughts on the Nat Phillips situation? What's your view? Should he be looking at moving him on, or give him the choice like I think?
I'd keep him as a backup to Matip, because Matip at some point is going to get injured and be out for 2-3 months, because that's what Matip does. I think you can't just go with 3 centre backs and Matip, because then we all know Gomez picked up Nichols as well, and we're in danger of being in the same situation we were in last season. Now, if Phillips is happy to sit there and be fifth choice and come in when Matip gets injured, or come in when Joe Gomez picks up Nichols, I think it's a no-brainer to keep him if he's willing to stay. If not, I would have sold Nat Phillips by now, and maybe brought in somebody like Kabak.
I didn't want Kabak, but I agree with you. If we're going to sell Nat Phillips, let's get that 12 million quid in the bank, eh? Coming back to the question on screen now, Mike got that one that went over to the 2Z. With City, Chelsea having 2 players in each position, Mike, do you think Liverpool are falling behind, or do you think with the players fit, they'll come again, but they do need to strengthen? What's your thoughts?
I'm not worried, but this is one thing I'm confident about. I'm actually not worried about. Actually, I don't really, but I'm not really concerned about Chelsea, what they're doing, really. I only care about what Liverpool are doing. I'm not watching what the other clubs are doing. Yes, I know it looks great when they sign, all these massive signings and stuff like that, all these world-class players who are yet to be proven, by the way, in the Premier League, because we know how tough that league is. But to answer the question, are Liverpool falling behind? In transfers, yes. In managers, no. We have one of the best sort-out managers that any club could possibly wish for. In terms of current players, again, I would say you could honestly argue that Liverpool have 6, if not 7, players that would be walking into most teams in the world and are sought-after players. Despite the season that some of them may have had last season, i.e. Mane, but yeah, I think are Liverpool falling behind? I think that's a big stretch to say we're falling behind. I think it's the frustration of the fans that you can see on social media, which may spill onto telly. I don't know if that's what's causing it, but no, Liverpool are absolutely not falling behind. We're a top-class club. We have top-class players and a top-class manager. I would just like for the sustainability and the future of the club to be I don't know the word, but I want us to carry on.
Sustained.
I don't want us to just sit still, stagnant, not doing anything, because that's potentially why clubs might think we're falling behind. Absolutely. The next 2 to 3 years, Liverpool Football Club is fine.
Absolutely. Evening, Saints. How are you, buddy?
I'm all good, mate. Sorry for my tardiness, mate. I'm just coming back after work, and lateness is greatness, as they say. I'm here. What's good, guys?
Good stuff, mate. Good to have you on, fella. I'm going to put the same question to you in a minute. I want your thoughts on this one, Saint, because obviously I've spent a lot of time with you on pods.
Unfortunately, sorry, I apologise.
Sometimes we talk a lot of sense, and sometimes we don't. But this question is an interesting one. I'd like your take on it, because I pretty much know where Ian's at with this, but this is not something we've discussed before. So have a look at the question, mate, and give us your thoughts, please.
Do I think we're falling behind? Okay, so like my learned friend said before me, in terms of transfers, I would say obviously we are. Again, I'm not too bothered, and I am, because in terms of our first team, we a lot of the other teams needed a lot more catching up to do. Do you know what I mean? They needed to improve. They needed those acquisitions. We are, when we're firing, a team that blasted the league at a canter. Do you know what I mean? And we are now getting a lot of those players back. Do you know what I mean? In firing, Van Dijk, Gomez, and or Konate, Henderson, like a lot of these players are now coming back. Fabinho, and do you know what I mean, getting a run of games. So our 11, I don't have a problem. It's the question is that they had 2 players in each position. That does worry me because we don't have that. Our depth isn't great, and our backup players, unfortunately, happen to be injury prone. So it's not a great, like, do you know what I mean? It's not a great, doesn't fill me with great confidence. That's the only thing in which I'm a bit like, like there's the key things in which, the key tweaks in our team that I would like to see, we haven't seen yet. I kind of understand why, but I'm still a little bit frustrated. But generally speaking, now I'm all right. Like I said, our first team is serious.
Absolutely. Right, I'm going to come to you guys about something that's made the headlines on social media. And it's Gini Wijnaldum's come out at the weekend with some comments. Are they fact or are they fiction? Is it a smokescreen for the fact that he didn't get the salary he wanted? Has the guy got a point? Mike, I'm going to come to you first. Gini Wijnaldum's comments this weekend. What's your thoughts on that? How do you feel reading that?
Why do people feel like they need to feel something about what players feel? Like the guy said he didn't get the contract he wanted. I believe the story goes as this. He's not got the contract he wanted, right? And in the same breath, he's also said that some of the people on social media did attack him, and he felt a way about the social media presence of some of the fans, not the fans in the stadium, but some of the fans on social media that used to attack him. I think that's a fair comment to make, and I think anybody who doesn't get a contract they feel deserving from their employer has the right to look out for what's best for them. I mean, I'm speaking from a point of view where I understand. Like, not recently, but before I started working for my current employer, I was trying to negotiate a contract with them. They said I wasn't worth that much. I said I was. We couldn't come to an agreement. I left the company because I felt like I was worth more. It's a normal part of life to want more for your services if you feel like you are worth more. This is standard. In terms of the social media thing, like what sorry, I forgot your name, mate. But I think somebody was saying that, Liverpool is such a clickbait club, like, with headlines. So anytime there's like a headline, the fans will click into it and we will spread it. I don't think Gini Wijnaldum said anything that outrageous. I don't think he was disrespectful. I think he was just telling his truth, which is absolutely fine. We can read it and move on. It doesn't need to be a whole big thing about why Gini Wijnaldum left the club. I think he didn't get the contract he wanted, and that's that, really.
Rack, do you think? What's your take on this situation? Because I'll tell you what I feel quickly before I come to you.
Yeah, go on.
The same people who are saying it's a load of nonsense are now actually attacking the guy in the same way they did when he had a bad game. So they're kind of undermining their own arguments and their responses to what he came out with. That's just my opinion. Add that to your thoughts and tell me where you're at with it, buddy.
Look, I think there are 2 things here. Obviously, the whole contract situation. Maybe we didn't offer him the kind of money he was looking for. I think that's fair enough. People can walk their own way, walk their separate ways. He was a great servant for us. The most important thing in this discussion for me is the way that people are treating Gini and other footballers online, because it's fucking disgraceful. Like, excuse my language. Like, the fact that people are out here, like, I've read some really, really horrible things about footballers, and like at the end of the day, these are people, right? Like, and when I hear and read some of the things that people say, that he should get out of our club, like, people not only say get out of our club, they say get out of my club, like the club belongs to them. I'm sorry, that's fucking bullshit, and it's something that I get really, excuse my language again, I get really annoyed about, because it's unacceptable. You would not say anything like that to his face. So why do you feel the necessity to say it online? And it's, for me, stuff like that is utterly disgraceful. And I'm 100% with Gini on it. And even if that contributed 1% to him wanting to leave the club, I think those people should hang their head in shame.
Totally agree. Ian, coming to you. like me, you've been a fan a bit longer than some of the people that are on this pod. Over the years, when Liverpool won trophies, leagues, European Cups, there was always a player that sort of divided the fan base, wasn't there? But I don't remember them being abused. I don't remember them being treated the way they. I don't remember them being vilified. I don't remember them being threatened.
When was this, Steve?
Over the years, you can go back to the 1986 double
There
winning
weren't
side.
social media. There weren't
Well,
social media.
I get this, but players, you didn't even hear it in the pubs, mate. People didn't do that. See, this is why I take exception with some people on social media, and I bite when really I shouldn't. Is that I've grown up not doing that, and I can't get my head around how anyone can dig out their own players of a team they're supposed to support to the level where I'll put a thought to you guys right now. I think if we'd offered the same money as PSG, still would have left because of what he said at the weekend. I genuinely think he would still have left and gone to PSG. So, Ian, coming to you, you will remember that unfancied players we had on our side. Ronnie Whelan used to get a few pelters, but nothing like this. Have we ever had a team where all of our fans loved all of our players? Have you ever? He's gone. Saint, same question to you, buddy. In the time that you've been a Liverpool fan, and that's what you call ad-libbing, that isn't it? Quickly move on.
Mate, I like it, mate. Kept 1 2 step, mate. Kept it moving.
Have we ever had a Liverpool team that you've followed, mate, where you absolutely loved all 11 players, mate? There are players that are in the team that you don't necessarily rate. Why do we do it? Why do we abuse our players in the way we do? Why do we put them in a position? Because it annoys me, mate. It really annoys me because that Gini Wijnaldum could be a really sensitive bloke.
I think the football fan nowadays is a really entitled person. He feels this thing of entitlement because of the amount of money he's spending, because of the amount of time he's investing, or with whatever he's doing on social media. Like we're here now, and that's what we do. We invest a lot of money, we invest a lot of time, and we invest a lot of this in our club. That doesn't give you the right to do what you do. I think if there had been social media around when Ronnie Whelan played, Ronnie Whelan would have been dug out. Don't think it would have been dug out as bad, but he said it would have been dug out. Dirk out, you say that?
Dirk out,
you said it all the time. And the difference was, it wasn't on social media.
Barros.
There'd be about 100 people in a pub, and 80 people would be standing in a pub looking for Barros running with his head down again.
It's all about
the only thing, Ian, is you're getting guys in the pub that are actually talking. Like this is what me and Steve like. I find it very hard. This is what he's talking about. Sometimes he bites in social media because I just don't get the trolls. Back in the day, you're getting people in the pubs talking with their chest, talking about their opinions. Yeah, they were, however left field or right field, it was their opinions. They could talk to you. They could. These lot don't give a shit. They're just making up an account just to say something, and then, do you know what I mean? It's just crazy, and then you're just like, that's why I'm like, mate, it's social media. Social media has made the armchair pundit, and it's. No, go on.
Part of the problem is now, though,
Oh God, he's having a mare, isn't
he? Yeah, trust me. FSG onto his Wi-Fi, man.
Oh man, Apple iPhones are evil.
FSG need 12 million to get his Wi-Fi put back up.
Trust me.
Go on, Rack. You were going to say something about Ian reconnects.
So, for example, I wasn't Dirk How's biggest fan. You know, like. I could see that he was putting a lot of effort and he was trying, but I just never really thought, especially in his latter years, that he was Liverpool quality. But there's a way you express that, like both in person and online, and saying that he should get out of my club, he's effing useless, or he's a prick, and that he's a greedy so and so or whatever. Like we as fans, we're more than happy for if a player wants to leave, or because he gets his end contract, we get all hit up. But if a club wants to sell a player, then we're like, oh yeah, leave. Like in a similar way to what we were just talking about Origi a second ago. I think it's a bit different with Origi because I think it's better for him and better for the club that we part ways. But other people will express that opinion in a far more extreme way. They'll be like, "Yeah, he's useless. Get the fuck out of my club. He's shit." All that kind of stuff. And that's just, for me, that's That's just unacceptable, man. Because no way half these people would say that kind of stuff to his face. And I'm like, if you haven't got the courage to say that kind of stuff to someone's face, which 99% of people don't. I saw a clip the other day of a Spurs fan sitting in a restaurant, and Sol Campbell was there. Sol Campbell was getting up to leave, and he turns to Sol Campbell and he said, Sol Campbell, you Judas C word. And like, don't get me wrong, you can be a passionate Spurs fan, but he left Spurs like 20 years ago, man. He hasn't played football for like 15 odd years or something. Like, what gives you the right to say that in person to someone who's just leaving a restaurant? It's just not cool, man.
Is it an indictment on society today that we think we feel we can say what we want when we want, irrespective of the fallout from that?
You're talking to people that like go on social media and like racially abuse players and like, do you know what I mean? And like it is very much an indictment on society today. This is the playing field you're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So for Genie there's a part of me which is sad because I shouldn't, but I am in this day and age. Like there's a part of me that's like, Genie, like stop moaning. Do you know what I mean? Just because that is unfortunately how I'm being conditioned to be. Do you know them ones there? Like, and it is sad. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm like, bro, like if you in your statement, you said that people you played with, fans in the stadium, loved you. I'm like, bro, you can't get everyone that's not gonna. Do you know? I think sometimes the bar's a bit unrealistically high. It's like, brother, come on, man, you're gonna get fools and clowns in every club. But if you're feeling the love from people who are actually there watching you with the eye test and your peers and the staff, turn the notifications off. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, that's what I'm saying. In terms of going back to what he said, the one thing I did have an issue with was I felt like you either come bare chest, you say it all out, or you don't say it. You continue to be silent. You've been silent for so long that we wouldn't have thought anything else had you just moved over to PSG and just carried on playing and not said anything. But for you to come out and say it, and then there was things like there was a rumor that Liverpool gave me an offer and I didn't accept it because I didn't want because I wanted more money, and the fans just took that and ran with it, and it hurt. But you don't go on to then explain what happened. You don't put that to bed and be like, well, in actual fact, this is what happened. So this is why I'm like, if you're not gonna say everything, don't half come out and be like, well, like I get it, and you're all right. Like it is diabolical. People shouldn't be. I don't understand. Like I have done exactly like Rack said. I've done it. Like when I'm watching football, I'm cussing Moreno. Like you are shit. Like, but after it's done, I ain't got time. I haven't got the energy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's long, but at the same time, do you know what I mean? Like I said, Genie, bro, like. There's obviously things that you're still not willing to say, and just don't say nothing in it. Just, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I kind of hoped he would have gone away and kept his dignity and said nothing.
Just said nothing. Do you know what I mean?
I think we as a fan base, sorry mate, I think we as a fan base expect him to come out and give us a 25-page dossier on how FSG stitched him up. That's what our fan base engineered in their own mind. We're going to get a story about FSG. We're going to get the FSG out train going again. He never did it. He's obviously a sensitive guy. You know, you can see that he's a pretty happy-go-lucky character from the way he is on the football pitch. You could try and split him in half with a challenge, mate, and he gets up with a massive smile on his face. He clearly is a guy that is happy with life in general. Just shouldn't have said anything. Shouldn't have moved on. Mike, comment on the screen there is an interesting one, and I've got an example of an English player that got ruined last season because of his form. What's your thoughts on that comment that's on there now?
What has an English player ever had backlash on social media from the list you have
period
said?
In our club? Is that period or is that in our club?
Anyone other than David Beckham, obviously for the World Cup thing. I think that
backlash on social media. I definitely mean. I don't think it's racial.
I couldn't name you 5 though.
Nah, I know.
Enough.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I could name you loads of English players, but at the same time, I do think
Winks. Harry Winks.
Yeah, Winks. I don't know. Loads of players get like get abuse for their performances and stuff like that. Loads. It happens all the time when football teams lose games. Like, obviously, look, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Obviously, these things are happening at a higher rate for black players or foreign players, right? But I do feel that English players also do get abuse, but not at the same rate as some black players do or foreign players do. So, to answer the question, I think yes, but not at the same rate, and not with the same level of hatred. It's definitely a different question you're asking, because I can understand if you're slating a player for their performance, but to attack a player for the color of their skin or their religion, that's out of bounds. Like, that's not what football's about. That has never been what football's been about, and football's about bringing.
I get that, Mike. That's a much deeper conversation, and without dismissing it, you're absolutely 100% right. I mean, Saints, I've spent a lot of time with you over the last season on social media and on pods and things, and unfortunately, we have to address racism, and I did in a pod on my own channel quite recently. It's not an easy thing to do. Unfortunately, it's something that needs to be dealt with from the highest powers that are. But how do you alter culturalism? How do you alter things that have been forced into people through their country's beliefs? But let's not go there, because we can end up being here till midnight trying to examine that. We'll never get the answers, because you can't answer ignorance. End of story, mate. You can never find an answer for ignorance. Trent Alexander-Arnold was the guy I was thinking about that got a lot of abuse from other fans other than Liverpool fans. The question, should he go to the Euros or not? Oh, he's defensively crap. He's the worst right back in the country when he's running towards his own goal. Actually, statistically, he's not. He's a number 10 in a 2 shirt. That's the way I look at him. He's a number 10 in a 2 shirt. And only Kevin De Bruyne has made more chances and created more goals than a right back. Than a right back, guys. A right back, not a number 10 who sits behind the front line pulling the strings. A guy that operates on the right side of our defence.
Sorry, not Bruno Fernandes, no?
No. Bruno Fernandes is more to do with the goals. His goals and assists would be higher than Trent's, because he takes penalties and set pieces and things like that. But in terms of over the last 2 or 3 years, there's only De Bruyne that comes in front of Trent in terms of assists.
I'm just trolling Steve for the United fans, by the way.
That's all right, mate. There's enough of them on here doing that, mate. Don't worry. I'm just being very economical with the comments, to be fair, because this is a Liverpool show, not a Liverpool diss. So, at the end of the day, yeah, I'll take constructive comments, absolutely. But at the end of the day, he's asked to take risks in a formation where our fullbacks don't have ridiculous defensive responsibilities. They're asked to be creative. They're asked to play high up the pitch. That is why, and it's one of the things I want to speak to you guys about, and I'll come to you in a minute, Rack, is the loss of Gini Ronaldo, and whilst on the Gini subject, means on that left-hand side, we don't have a ready-made player to fill in and be the ball recycler and cover for Robertson. And one of the things we suffered with last season was the fact that they were so scared of the back four. We didn't see Robertson far enough up the pitch very often. So in terms of that, coming away from that, do you think, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't think Thiago can play in Ronaldo's role, because I don't think Thiago can play on the stretch. So with regards to that, Rack, would you agree?
Steve, just quickly, guys, just before you move on to your next question, I'm going to shoot, mate. Thank you so much.
All right, Mike. Pleasure to have you on, mate.
I'll give this a wee retweet on Twitter so we can spread the awareness that I'm back. I'm back on the podcasts.
Good man. We'll see you again, mate.
Nice
Enjoyed your company.
guys.
Thanks very much, mate.
Right.
Take
Cheers,
easy,
mate. All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Right. So where were we before Mike jumped in and gave us his departure? You were about to talk to me about this left side of midfield position and whether I asked you whether Thiago could cover the.
Yeah. No, I think I don't think he'll fulfill the same role as Gini would. But so I think we will make a midfield addition, and I think it'll be great if Saul is that guy, because I think he's got all the technical and tactical attributes to be able to fill that role. yeah, if we don't make a midfield addition, I'd be a bit concerned unless Ox or Naby can step up, and we know that in the last kind of 3 or so years that they haven't been reliable. That if we don't make a midfield addition, then I will have some concerns, because that's not Thiago's game. But I think we will make that addition. So I don't know. It's wishful thinking to some extent, or being hopeful. But I don't think Thiago's the guy for that particular role. But I think we will find someone who can do those things.
I hope so. Nick, before we move on, I just want your thoughts, because I've not spoken to you about this for a little while. Obviously, we went quiet on the other streams. Centre midfield berth, the names that have been mentioned potentially as suitors to join Liverpool. Who's your choice? Who's been the one that sort of raised your eyebrows?
So I'm muted there. I really want Sal. I really want Sal. I think he's like Rat said, technically just brilliant. And got an engine on him. Kessie, but that's for next year. I'm trying to think who I think would. I'm not so sold on what's it, the Portuguese Renato Sanchez.
Sanchez.
I'm not so sold. Neither am I. I really, in all honesty, I can't see past Sol. And now that the whole Atletico thing has broken down, it's just giving me a little bit more like, oh, could we? It would be phenomenal. I think he would be a really, really good addition, and really give Thiago like some room to play. I don't know. Some people have said Sabitzer, but I'm not. Nah, and that would be my person. So I guess.
I think I wrote an article on recently that was published, and if you look through my profile, it's a pretty interesting read. He's only scored 29 goals in 250 games, so he's not a goal threat. But then he wouldn't be a goal threat playing for Atletico Madrid, because they're not really a goal threat. They're probably the most defensive system in Europe, aren't they? Yeah, they're probably the most defensive team in Europe in terms of grinding out results. Sabitzer would be great, but for me, Sabitzer's more of a 8/10. Is Sabitzer a guy that you could sit in a very disciplined role to be a ball recycler? That might be a little bit of an injustice to a player of Sal's technical ability, but he's used to playing in a defensive system. He's used to playing with instructions. There is nobody that asks more of their team in terms of organisation than Simeone. They win Champions League quarterfinals and semi-finals by being utterly and completely negative. So if you need to, he can dig in the trenches and do it. Sabitzer's cool, but why not both? Because Sabitzer's available for 15 million because of where he is in his contract. That's insane to think a player of that ability, and he's got lots of ability. Would be. And there's a few players that are Dani Olmo look really good in the Spanish side. The guy who plays at Leipzig. So, but I'm with you. I think if we can get one across the line, Saul Niguez would be the guy I would like to see play for Liverpool.
I do like Frank Kessie as well. I do think, like I said, I mentioned, but I just don't think Kessie's going to be this year. And that role is so vital, it's pivotal. We need someone for this.
Yeah, so Kessie loves AC Milan, and I think he's got a year left in his contract, and he's basically come out and said that his primary objective is to stay at Milan. We'll obviously see what happens, because a lot can change, and it depends on what kind of contract offer they can come in with. As Italian football is in a bit of a difficult situation at the moment financially, but they are back in the Champions League for the first time in a number of years. So it'll be just interesting to see how that pans out. But I mean, Kessie's a good player. I'm not sure.
He's a good player.
Seems like he really wants to stay at AC Milan. He's loved there, and he loves them. So we'll see.
Rack,
whilst you're there, have a look at that comment. Are you not worried that there's going to be so much emphasis on Harvey Elliott's second choice to Salah? Thoughts?
I mean, Elliott's a difficult one. My initial thoughts were to send him out on loan for another season. and to perhaps a team in the Premier League and get him as much game time as possible. Because, I mean, the kid looks like he's the real deal. The only people who can make that determination are the people at the club, because they see him every day in training, week in, week out. So I'm sure they'll do what they think is best. If he does stick around, then I think he'll be a good backup to Salah. But we know Salah plays a lot, and
that's what I was just about to say. I was just about to say that.
So
Salah plays a hell of a lot.
Yeah, how productive is it going to be for Elliot to come on? You know, and he doesn't like to come off
January.
Either.
January.
Yeah,
AFCON.
absolutely.
Yeah, but I think apparently I was looking at the schedule, and apparently their players are only really going to miss about 2 games because of the mid-season break and all that kind of stuff. And we're potentially only going to be missing a couple of games, which might obviously would work in our favour. I don't know how productive or how good it will be for Elliot to come on and get 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there. So I don't know, maybe send him out on loan for the first half of the season and see how he does with a recall clause in January, and see how he's getting on there, see whether we need him. I don't know. The thing is, obviously, then if we do have an issue and Salah does get injured, for example, then people will kick off and say, "Oh, why do we send Elliot away on loan?" So it's one of those.
I don't think
unknowns.
he's gonna. I don't think he'll go on loan. I think the Phil Foden model has opened people's eyes to saying, actually, if they're good enough, which Elliot clearly has got quite a lot of ability. That's an understatement, isn't it? Then you keep him around players like Salah, you keep him around the Bobby Firminos who can teach him the little things they need to do to earn themselves a yard of space to do something. So I see Harvey Elliott staying. Nick, I've got a question here by our good friend Ryan. You are the only man I know on the planet who is in the best position to put this question to bed, mate, because it's absolutely balmy. So the floor's yours, mate. Do with that whatever you need to.
Cheers for that, Steve. Appreciate it. Steve, you know why you put this up, because you know my answer already. No, there's in no parallel universe would I ever sell Henderson, ever. It doesn't make anyone that really knows us. And I know, Ryan, you're a football guy. You just started watching football and that. But like, when anyone that really knows us tactically knows how vital, especially going back to what you said, we're a team that a lot of our creativity comes from our fullbacks and them being allowed to be able to maraud and do what they can. And without players like Gini, without players like Henderson, without players like Fabinho, that system doesn't work. And it's an intelligent system. What Henderson... It's funny because what Henderson lacks technically isn't as much as people... I would say rival fans, but there's obviously, because the question's from Flip and Ryan, and even a lot of our fans try and like mock him, but he's not as far off technically as a lot of people like to say he is. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on. But what he does lack technically, he's a very intelligent player. Like can't teach the type of football intelligence. Do you know what I mean? That comes, and that's why he's at Klopp's disposal. Not because he can do what Pogba does or shit like that. No, he's there for a specific reason, and that reason makes us tick over. He's our captain. He's the best captain in the league. Yeah. And he's just not someone that says no, I wouldn't be selling him. I know it's a very bait. He's baited me on that one. I know exactly where he's come from, but no, not at all. And rightly so is why the fan base kind of erupted, because it's unthinkable. You give the player, you let him see out his contract. You give him 2 years. Turns 35. Probably won't see out 35. Become an ambassador, become a coach or something like that. It just makes sense, in it. Like, it's just
absolutely. Rack, the question on screen now: are there any youth gems that could come through? will Reece Williams be around the first team squad? So having had a look at pre-season, I was going to do a piece on that, but we've really got into some bits and pieces, so we're going to leave that for another time. But looking at what you've seen, watching the games, there's a couple there, isn't there? What are your thoughts on the young players that have gone away with the first team squad?
Whether they'll be around the first team squad, I'm not entirely sure. But Cade Gordon looks really useful.
Yes.
Like he came in with a lot of hype, being arguably the most talented teenager in England, and yeah, the little that I've seen of him looks positive. I don't know whether it's too early for him. It probably is too early for him. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think Harvey Elliott's the next one in line to make that step up. And then the question is whether we keep him or not, as the case may be. I'd who else is there? So go ahead.
No, it's a Polish guy. I'll butcher his name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the wide guy. I can't pronounce his name. Just signed a contract. Listen, I'm just going to put something to bed once and for all, right? Because he baited you and he's carrying on. So I'm going to nail this one, right? If we get Sal and Henderson doesn't even get into our strongest midfield next season, he can do the cheerleading from the bench. Right, Ryan, let's put this to bed once and for all, because you keep doing this. If Sal joins the football club, the midfielders that will vie with Sal for the starting 11 is Thiago. Fabinho's role is safe. Henderson's role is safe. Without Henderson, there's no Trent. So let's
just about to say that Trent can't do what he does.
Let's stop this nonsense. And Saul is left-footed, so why would you play him on the right-hand side of our midfield, mate? So please, brother, stop with this nonsense. Because it's like clickbait for podcasts, isn't it? That's what it is. Question here: someone's asked, would you take this guy, Milinkovic-Savic, for the right price? Personally, I don't think he's quick enough to play in the English game because he's not got legs. He's very, very good footballer, technically brilliant. But in a side with a transition like ours, I'm not sure this guy's got the pace to play there. Thoughts, Rack?
Yeah, I mean he's talented and he's been good for Lazio. I think the hype has died down on him a little bit, and I don't know if he's ready to play. I mean, Lazio play a very different style to us, so and I imagine Lazio are going to ask a lot of money for him. So I don't think that's a starter. To be fair, I mean, what would we be looking to pay? I don't think we'll be looking to necessarily pay more for a midfielder than, I don't know, 35, 40 million. So, and I don't know if Lazio would want to let him go for that. So I can't see it. And I mean, I'm not a big one when it comes to links because in the last few years we've signed a few players who haven't been linked to at all, almost like Jota and even Thiago. Links only really came up in the first few weeks of the transfer window. So I'd be surprised if Milinkovic-Savic is a target. So.
Answer to this one: would you take Vlahovic? Different option. The more I see of him, the more I like him. Don't kill me, but I think he'd be very good, especially for a certain Steven Gerrard. Take him all day long, mate. We need something different up front. We need something that as good as Bobby Firmino can be. Bobby Firmino isn't stringing games together where he's effective as he was, say, a year or two after we bought him. There's a bit of intensity gone from his game. Salah and Mane want balls fizzed into them at pace so they can use the ball to manipulate their body position and go past people. I don't see Firmino doing that at the moment. His form has been a problem for me for over 12 months. This guy would give you something different. This guy would give you an option to play a bit more direct into the central positions and get around him. Because if we are anything, and last season showed this, we are a little bit predictable. How many times did we all sit cussing the TV because Andy Robertson was drilling balls into the near post, trying to get crosses into people that just weren't there? So it would be nice to have a different plan. And those things that Robbo did come out of frustration and a lack of form, the lack of confidence, which clearly the team had. But this guy would be tremendous. If we were to get Saul Niguez and this guy, then it would be a top draw transfer window for Liverpool Football Club because you'd be putting quality right through the spine of the team. Konate clearly is going to be one. The guy's an absolute monster, but I still think he's got to play his way into the first team. I think he's behind Matip and he's behind Gomez in terms of understanding the plan, understanding the system, and understanding English football in general, really. So look.
I would take your hand off of Flavic, mate. Oh,
Me
God.
too, mate. Nick, one for you, buddy. Do you think Minamino should be given a chance?
Personally, no. If I'm honest with you, I feel like there's we got him for 7 million. I feel like there's just decent sell-on value. Like Michael Edwards can do his magic and get at least minimum 10 million. Like, do you know what I mean? Minimum. And I just feel like I personally for what we need, we don't need a lot. We just need just one or two. Do you know what I mean? Let's pool in our money and just get that. Is what I think, rather than just kind of, you know what I mean, have people that might or might not work out. And unfortunately for me personally, Minamino is one of those.
Rack, thoughts on Minamino?
Yeah, look, I mean, he hasn't really risen to the heights that we would have hoped for him. I mean, when he came in, we were all very happy, and lots of people were talking about him being, a Firmino light or someone who can perform at a similar role. Hasn't really worked out. I'm of the opinion that if we can get okay money for him, the magic 12 million, then that might be worth considering. He's a good player. I haven't seen enough of him for Liverpool to give me a fair indication that he's the answer for our to fulfill a striking berth. So I think we need a midfielder, we need a striker going in as we were saying, and I don't necessarily think we need a lot more, but I don't necessarily think Minamino's the guy. So if he's not going to be the guy, then maybe we should look at moving him on.
By the way, 50, 60 million for Vlahovic, get it done. This comment, if we don't sign a winger, keep Minamino, well, Minamino's a number 10, and that's part of the problem that we've had with him.
Steve?
Yeah,
we don't really know where. We don't really know where he plays.
He was a 10 for Salzburg against us, mate. He absolutely played in the pocket in front of our back four. We didn't know what to do with him. I think the problem we've got is we don't play with a 10. And when we play 4-2-3-1, that's ugly. 4-2-3-1 is not a system I like. And the reason why is we kill all the space that Mane and Salah want to run into by congesting the centre of the pitch. So I'm not a fan of 4-2-3-1. I don't actually see where Minamino fits in the Liverpool system. I really don't. And like we both said, if we can get 10, 12 million for him, then let's get done. But I personally see him as a 10, and that's why he played for Salzburg. He can play right wing, but he's completely ineffective for Liverpool.
He hasn't looked great there. He hasn't looked great on the right. Hasn't looked great as false nine. Hasn't looked great.
He makes straight. I mean, I remember when we beat Palace 7-0, and people are saying, "Why don't they pass the ball to Minamino?" They don't pass the ball to Minamino because they don't understand the runs he's making, because they're bizarre. They're not runs that fit in with our system. It's difficult for him, and it's through no fault of his own. He go and play back in the Bundesliga with a Hoffenheim or someone like that, he'd be a worldie. He'd be brilliant for them. It's just the Liverpool system is so rigid, and if you don't get it, you don't get it. And I think that's the reason why Shaq will move on, because he clearly doesn't get it. He's got ability, but I just don't. I know he played one game and he scored, but he played other games when he didn't contribute at all. So I think, to be fair, I think it's time that he moved on. Is one for us. I'm starting to think I've been a bit harsh on Salah. Still overrated, though. Ryan, you spend all day triggering people, don't you, mate? Whether it be in podcasts or on Twitter, you spend all right. His numbers are insane. When he is retired, he will be dining at the top table of Premier League forwards. End of. He will be in the same conversation as anyone you like, because his numbers are insane. His numbers are insane. Right, guys, so we've been an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm going to bring it to an end. It's been enjoyable. Thanks for all the guests that came on. Those of you that are still with us, that's Rack. Rack, tell us where we can find you, please, pal.
I'm not a YouTuber, but you can catch me on Twitter, so at RackSing1. Occasionally, I do the Twitter Spaces thing, so you can probably catch me at 2:00 in the morning chatting to someone about some random football club as well as Liverpool. So that's my main avenue to find me. You
go and indulge Dom Hussein quite a bit, don't you? Dom Hussam, quite a bit, mate. So That guy's on next week, and that'll be box office, that mate, because he's entertaining, mate. Do you know what? He actually talks quite a lot of sense about football, but he lets his emotions get the best of him when it comes to FSG. But I'm really looking forward to that because despite what people think, I've talked to him quite a bit. He's actually quite a decent bloke, to be fair. I'm sure you would agree, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Hussam and Mo, they're good guys, so I'm looking forward to that one. Should be good fun.
Saint, where can we get you, pal? What are you up to?
Bro, Saint LFC TV on YouTube, Copper Mechanism with my boy Steve. And yeah, man, I've just taken a little hiatus. I'm back on it. I'm actually got a Liverpool show starting on Sarcasm City with the one and only Ryan. They needed someone to, you know what I mean, oppose his nonsense, and I'm the one that drew the short straw. Nah, it's gonna be fun, man. Obviously, if you know Ryan, you know the ludicrous stuff he comes out with. So yeah, that should be good. So catch us there.
Excellent. And you'll find me here, and you'll also find me on Friday nights on Usman Talks United on a Premier Rival show with a really top draw panel, same as we get here. Once again, guys, the comments have been on fire tonight. There's been a lot of nonsense through there. There's been a lot of stuff that we can speak about as well. So really grateful for you tuning in and making it what it is. Thanks again to the guests. Good to have you on, Nick. We'll definitely do it again, pal.
Thank you so much, man.
Rack, as usual, we'll see you next week. And
cheers,
yeah,
Steve.
but everybody take care. Speak soon.